going to put this in other people's fixtures, right? It's not all going to be Signify, Phillips. Yeah, absolutely. If you don't, Phillips can't be the only company that provides fixtures with our sensors. That'll never work, right? So we understand that we kind of got to section off our needs and our wants, and that the Phillips, agent that wants to sell all the fixtures is going to be super happy that you're promoting it with a, but that's okay, right? Otherwise, this industry just won't succeed. So we really appreciate that you're doing that. It's very unselfish, but it's very long-term, and I think that's how we want to play with partners that are thinking long-term and not just about how much I can sell today.
I think the result of that, the Zitanium drivers, it's interesting. I hear a reference that this so-and-so fixture has a Zitanium driver. I'm thinking, well, the Phillips driver. No, it's the Zitanium driver. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, yeah, we'll go with that Zitanium driver. That's a good company. And it's becoming, I think, your strategy. Oh, it's kind of a stealth strategy. We can't own it all, but guess what? We have a good infrastructure that's going to own it all. So it helps us a lot having that. And as I said, we've had people reference it, not knowing or not really realizing it was part of your portfolio.
And then if you stop by the Signify booth, you hear that lighting is a new language, right? I think that's very true. The language and communicating, and to make that language common, we have to kind of let everybody know how to speak the language. So I think that's really the digital foundation. You really have to start with that building block first of all. So with that, and I'm going to ask you the other question is that from a lighting industry standpoint, with Signify being its unique global perspective in a leadership position, is there something that we can do to help to further advance these, connected as a mainstream, right? I'm sure that I use the terminology of Wild West. There's so many different solutions. There's so many different players. Everybody want to get in there and make money out of it. But like you said, Benjamin, it's about the long view. How do we really help our customer make it easier? Right, so is there some advice that you can offer to us so that we can bring it back to the colleague in the U.S. as well as in the headquarters? This is what we need to do to really drive it forward.
Yeah, and I am going to put that on you because that's your job. I am going to help you because if you get in front of the right people, which is the end user, you understand what their needs are. We can stop approaching the industry from a hardware perspective where we say, well, everyone's making sensors. I'm just going to make another sensor, just smaller, cheaper, lighter, better, with more widgets in it. Versus going and finding out why people are using these sensors and what's valuable to them, and then making something that actually solves a problem or fills a void in the marketplace. And so, again, this is getting in front of those that need it and understanding their needs. We need to start listening to the marketplace. This market has been just rife with fixture manufacturers that just make something 1 watt more efficient or 1% more efficient or whatever it is, or that it was edge lit and now it's thinner and edge lit or whatever it is. We just keep it still isn't asking the customer what do you need, because they didn't need to, because that was about a lighting designer designing a space really nice, and that's what they're hired to do. Now we need to talk to the end user. I don't think the lighting industry has spent a lot of time talking to an end user. So the controls guys do, because they're delivering these solutions. But even still, they're still looking around Lightfair and saying, oh, he's doing that? Oh man, we better do that. Really? Well, why? You don't know that there's an actual value for that. He may have just seen somebody else and he's copying him. So what I want you to do is get with me, get in front of the end users, listen to what the needs are, and let's create something that's going to actually change the game. And work with the software programmers that say, I want to create an app to do this, but there's no sensor out there that's collecting that data. Perfect. And then we go and we do that.
I'd say stop looking up all the time. You look at lights all the time, but when you go into a manufacturing site, it's the drives, it's the compressors, there's other parts of that building that uses a lot more energy than the lighting. And that's what they're looking at. Solve my problem that I can have. Is it one control system that controls all my different systems so I know what's going on and going off at a time? Is there ways to save money there? So I say if you're looking holistically at the building versus just one aspect of it, you'll be surprised how much more you can achieve or help your customer in that regard.
One thing I want to maybe differ from you, Benjamin, in terms of talking to the end customers. I'm sure that all of our OEM customers do talk to end customers, but I think that picking up what you said earlier is that the end customer has a different constituents. So they may be talking to one group, but now you have more people have vested interest. They all want to come in. It could be the CTO, a CIO. Other people say, hey, we can do this now. And they may not be the normal point of contact for the OEM, because some of the big guys, they have a control group, sure, they know who to talk to, knock on the right door. But the smaller guy, they only talk to the facility manager or people who buy, so you have the more diversity in terms of stakeholders, because IoT really break down the wall and people realize the benefit. And like you said, your grandmother or your mother or other relative who's using a Nest, using a smartphone, we're kind of pampered with that advance in the consumer electronic, and now they're expecting the same at work.
Yep. And you asked that before, and I know you asked it again because we didn't really answer it, so that's good. I appreciate that. You got to talk to the CEO, because he's got the greater vision of the whole company, and he wants to see things that he wasn't seeing. So you need him, and then he can point you in the right direction. The next person is the IT department. And nobody wants to talk to the IT department. Okay?
I get into trouble taking away the laptop.
I don't like it. It's not fun. Okay, they don't like me, and I try.
Security. Okay.
Yeah,
how
right.
robust it can be.
What are you going to do to my network?
Yeah.
But no, IT departments these days, these guys are really smart. They went to school a long time to study networks, and they're not just studying how I put fiber in my building anymore. They are looking at IoT solutions. They're back there digging up solutions, they're researching. They will help guide you to what's happening in that building and to ways that they'll allow access and will want to work with you. So IT folks, really important. CIO, good person to be involved in that discussion. COO, somebody that's really interested in optimizing the operations of the building. And so here's some data that we could use to do that. So unfortunately, it's a lot of C-suite, because when we were dealing with a lighting retrofit, it was facilities manager. It was a really easy person to talk to. It was nice. We went in jeans and a t-shirt, and we all, were
No PowerPoint required.
No power, better not, So yeah, now it's, unfortunately, there's 5 gatekeepers in front of the person that you really need to talk to, and that's why that's why the big folks have had more success than the little ones, because GE or Acuity or those can walk in and say, hey, I'm GE, by the way, we funded your company through GE Capital, you might want to hear me out, right? So that type of stuff is getting them to the right people, whereas me walking out there, I'm SBT, get in line, right? So that is a more challenging, that the industry has a big challenge there, especially if you're a contractor and you want to sell a solution, you have to fight your way up to the right spot. But you know what? Start at the facilities manager and tell them what you're trying to do, and a lot of times they'll fight to get you up there, because from what we found, they'll get promoted from something like this, right? Or they'll get a lot of praise because this was outside the box thinking, and it impacted a lot of other departments other than just their budget, and so it can benefit them.
Okay. So one thing, maybe I'm going to turn it to the audience with a question. So will you tell me a little bit about the like a futuristic, one of the most futuristic use cases that you have seen, because I think I want to put us in the shoes of end customers, something that kind of stick in your mind. And
you can't name names, but I know who you want to talk about. No. Yeah. Okay. All right. There's a large national small box retail project that we're working on right now, but I'd say it's the most complex IoT project or deployment that anyone's ever done in the industry. To date, it's using every possible IoT edge device that you can dream of, and including lighting, but lighting isn't driving the real value prop. So like we all talk about, lighting puts the network in place, but we're using smart thermostats, and that's good, and that's solving all sorts of problems. When you have 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 sites across the country, that visibility into each site and what's going on is game changing, right? We're seeing, as soon, and a lot of people in this industry that have tried to do that have, the instant you hit the on button, 4,000 alerts pop up, because half of these systems were on their way out anyways, right? So you have to deal with that, and there's analytics to help with that. But then getting even deeper into the edge and using temp sensors and humidity sensors and finding out what the temperature is outside and doing some analytics on how you can manage that, and having that from a macro view really helps. And then going into water detection and leak detection and water flow and managing the irrigation system and putting leak detection in critical areas like around the water heaters and stuff like that. All of it, cost savings, great data, just the T-stat portion of the ability to not have to send a tech out onto site just because somebody called and said it was too hot. The ability to log into a computer and see what's going on and say, well, the thermostat's set to 80, so that's why it's too hot. And I didn't have to pay $500 to find that out, to send a tech out. I can lower the temperature because maybe somebody was cold. Maybe your mother was at the site playing with the thermostat.
To expand on that one, so our customer there, and we didn't realize it. We thought it was the person who owns the small box retail. It's not. It's not our customer. That was the most game changing. Is the person who's actually servicing the site. We have to make their lives easier and more efficient. And if they're happy, that means that the end customer truly was happy. So we're giving them diagnostic information to know that maybe we're short cycling an air conditioning system every 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It's fine now because it's a nice temperature, but in 6 months that system's going to fail. So we're giving this early warning system so they can get in there and fix some things before it fails. So we're giving them preemptive diagnostics. It's a game changer, really. They're the first ones I think out there doing this type of level of control on everything. And there's some parts that are difficult to work with, but I think when they're finished, they're going to get a very robust system to be able to take advantage of things that you talk about. Outside temperature. Outside temperature just is spiking up. It's a really hot day in the summertime. Let's get those air conditioners pumped at a lower level instead of at max temperature 72, drop it down to 70 because we're going to be fighting that 90, 95, or 100 degree temperature later on that day. So there's ways to do this that allows them to that's the IoT world, to be able to use the data that you're already collecting into an intelligent way. To me, this is a game changer. We're not done with it yet, but and it's a challenge, but we're starting to see the effects of it right now.
Now, what about those who are on the fence? Because this is what you said is really the cutting edge, right? It's just like, wow, okay, that's the future. At the same time, there are those who's like, I don't need all of that. Just give me something cheap and simple, and that's all I need. So, are there any sort of advice, anything that you ask, hey, this is what you should think of from your perspective, Benjamin? You could talk to a lot of them already. Those who are very advanced, and also those who say, I just want to keep it simple.
Again, Benjamin said not to name names. I'm not going to name that person, but he told us that advanced controls was a waste of time. What are you doing that? I'm in the retrofit world. It's all about the lowest cost option to get into that. He said that here yesterday. I'm like, wow. Where have you been? The T12's calling your name, looking for you. So it got back to what I was saying. We really have to define what that return is. He was only on return on investment. It was only 2 years, and that means a tube world. And he was only looking strictly at energy savings. You have to really start educating folks about what that return can actually mean. We've got some ideas that were game changer. We talked about some other options where it's going to be revenue generating, where it allows you to have your salespeople more efficient at a particular site. That's a return. That's in the top part of that equation over the investment. And that's the part we have to try to do.
And I think that's might be kind of hard to capture that, right? Or quantify it, though,
correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Quantify benefit. I mean, we hear that all the time. It's like they can see the quantified benefit in terms of energy saving, but when you get into something more advanced that you intuitively know is there, but when we're trying to quantify, I think that's where the whole lighting industry right now is still kind of caught in this situation. We don't have a lot of use cases for that. If you do, maybe it's not like very well known because everybody want to keep it to themselves. Would you say that's the case?
No, I'm going to argue with you on that.
Okay, let's do it.
Because what you're referring to is when we hadn't actually figured out what the benefit was. So you can't quantify what you don't know what the benefit is. So we have a network that provides a bunch of data, and we run in there and say, isn't this data great? You're going to be able to do stuff with it. said, yeah, but what, and how can I quantify that? Now we've actually figured out what to do with that data. And now we can present that to the right person in the company, and he can actually come back, or she, sorry, and can tell us, that means this to my organization, and I can quantify that for you. But if you don't talk to the right person, they have no idea. So that means get the entire leadership team of the company in place, because I'm going to be talking to you for this, and you for this, and you for this, and I need your help, because I don't know what it costs you, but you can tell me, right? I hope you can. If not, maybe you got a bigger problem. So that, I think, is being vetted out. So I am no longer going and selling a pipe dream. I used to, all right? We had data, and some people loved the concept, and they were the early adopters, and they were great. Now we actually know what we can do with it, and I think we can quantify those benefits. If you haven't figured that out yet, come talk to us. We'll help you, because really that's what we spend all our time trying to figure out. I can't sell vaporware anymore, you need something tangible, right? So.
Okay. So just kind of wrap it up, I would like to ask each of you kind of one advice, one key takeaway you want our audience to think about, or to incorporate into the mind instead of the connected lighting. Something that you feel that this is your gift to our audiences here in the room, and also those who will be watching online.
Before there was a part of that question that I wanted to answer, and I think it's important. I want to say it.
Please do.
Advanced controls and wireless networks aren't for everyone, plain and simple. Okay. There are plenty of customers that, looking at their business model, and now, as a CEO and everything, and I see my company from the top down, and there's all sorts of things. I'm like, yeah, that would be wonderful to do, but I can't do that, right? I have this budget or this plan or this strategy, and advanced controls don't fit into that. I'm sorry, right? And from our standpoint, we're like, everyone needs it. It's the greatest thing in the world. Look at all the benefits. Look at what we can do for you. No, guess what? I'm selling my business next year, and I need to cut costs, and that's it. And I'm not interested in putting advanced controls in. Oh, that's an interest, but we can still do business, right? So I think that there's ways to get things like the SNS 200 or other type of local solutions in place that can be low enough cost, or can get the ROI to a point where it can fit inside of that 1 year window that they need in order to sell the company. Look, I'm not talking to somebody that's thinking 10 years down the road, they're thinking 1 year down the road. And unless I'm talking to somebody that's got a long-term vision and they want to grow their operations around their network, then that conversation's going to die really quick. And that comes back to listening to what your customer is asking for. If you're telling them to tell you what to spec, that's a problem. They don't know, right? And that happens a lot. My customer told me, spec this. I'm like, what? Please, I appreciate that, but come on, give them some guidance here. But then on the other side, my customer told me this was my business model and that they can't handle advanced control. And say, okay, well, let's start to shave some things away, some complexities and some costs, and let's find a solution that will solve their problem. So I don't want to let anybody think that we're under some kind of notion that you can go sell advanced controls to everybody, because you just can't. So that was one thing. The grain of something that I could leave with the audience, I would say, and I've been saying this for a while now, if you want to sell advanced controls, you have to lead with advanced controls. If you want to sell LED, then you need to lead with LED. If you get lucky and get something to tag onto the back side of the LED, then great, but you got lucky. If you lead with advanced controls, you will sell LED, because they go together right now. So if you want both, lead with the value that you're going to get from this network you're putting in, and you'll pull the LED with you, and I think you'll have a much more successful interaction. You got to get to the right people, but you'll definitely feel more fulfilled, because you aren't just. I think most of us in this industry are tired of having that same conversation. I saved you a watt, and here's your payback, and here's your rebate, and here's the da-da-da-da-da. This is much more fulfilling. You're bringing something really neat that most people haven't brought to them, and you're having a dialogue that's open-ended, and we're dreaming, and we're thinking, and we're inspiring, we're bringing partners to the table, and it's just a much more fulfilling sales process. And I hope that more people start engaging in that.
And I hear from the other panelists, they talk about imagination. I think that really the IoT really opened up that imagination. You have technology here available today, that they may not know of. Signify bringing a lot of new technology. You mentioned the SNS 200, we have 210 coming out, for example, right? So there are a lot of new innovation. It's like we know, but they have to use your imagination, figure out what these technology help to address the problem. So, Rich, what's your thought?
You know, I've been coming to Lightfair for 20 years now, and one of just take a snapshot from 20 years ago to today. It was a big Sylvania booth, a big GE booth, a big Phillips booth, and a big Lithonia, not Acuity back then, booth. And you look out there today, it's completely different now. All three of the major lighting companies have gone through major transformations. Other companies, some of the big fixture companies are out as well too. And so that tells me that, you know, we're evolving as an industry, very much evolving as an industry. So the set patterns, the set methods, the set processes that we've had in the past are not going to work going forward because we have such a different dynamic that we have today. So as you're developing products and you're going to market, looking backwards is probably going to give you you're going to fail going in the way, which means you have to have some new. That doesn't mean everything that you've done is wrong. That's absolutely not true. It's just that looking forward, taking what you've done well and trying to understand where the market's going, how you get to market, how do you get your systems. You know, in 20 years, maybe Signify becomes a full-blown software company versus a hardware. You know, it's keeping that mindset open about where those directions and avenues make sense. That's what's just keep that direction open-minded.
Great, thank you. Just like I said at the beginning of today's panel session, every time I hear from you and also now Rich, I feel that I learned so much. I hope that all of you in the audience feel the same way as well. So I do want to thank you very, very much for coming by, especially on the last day of Lightfair. I'm sure your bodies are kind of weary, want to go home. So with that said, I want to thank you very much, and I'd like to turn it to the audience if anybody have any question. Let me give it.
You nailed it. You sign with ROI at the moment. That's the way that you get in. So there are two questions I have about that, and I work within lighting, but only we write about it. And we're always seeking those examples. So for example, when we talk about offices and businesses, and we're selling connected lighting, we have the same old things that we pull out every time, which is, you know, cost of the dimming, which you've just said really doesn't save them very much, really good to know. Then we talk about meeting rooms and how you can, you know, find out through a central system if they're available or not. We have things like, you know, predictive maintenance potentially in some areas, although that's not a very strong suite, and we don't have any examples or many examples about that. We're always looking for ways to write about it in a more innovative way without scrabbling around the internet and finding, you know, some great examples from around the world, which we put in or copy, but then it, you know, it gets taken out. Everybody says we can't do that, we can't do that. So we end up with this sort of set of 4 things for a business, for example, for an office who's going to transform the whole system, which in the end you think there's not a very powerful value proposition here. And if I was the CEO, I'm not so sure if we can't prove anything apart from the saving of energy. And we don't usually talk about it in a financial term, we talk about it in a percentage, because I think it's probably, as you said, fairly minimal. So can you, when you said there are so many examples of innovative solutions out there, I'd love to hear more about some of them, maybe even just for, you know, for businesses and offices or something like that. Maybe talk to you afterwards.
Absolutely. I mean, just the easiest example I always try to give is on the manufacturing side. When I said look down and up when you're in that site, because there's so much more that you can build into that, using the lighting as the backbone of being able to do, if you want to just go strictly energy savings, because there's a lot of other things you can do. There's a lot more energy in a compressor than is the lighting any day of the week. So those are easy ones, and you can morph into some of the other less hard cost savings that you talked about, the conference room management. But if you start getting into the tracking of expensive items, and that becomes more valuable too as well. So yeah, we've got examples that we're putting together, we're actually implementing now, so we can absolutely talk to.
CEOs, do they generally know what they want, or do you think they've been more informed?
No, not about technology, but they know what their business needs.
Yeah.
And since we're not really having a technology discussion, we're having a solution to your problem discussion. let's not even, I won't even mention technology to CEO. I just want to know how their business runs and where the gaps are in data and what would be valuable to him. So it's much more listening to him than telling him. I certainly don't go in with a PowerPoint showing him a sensor, right? That's the last thing I'm going to do with a CEO.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming out today. We talk about education and you know, informing the OEM. So if you're an OEM, how do you educate your clientele and your target market? Like what are some pieces of advice that you can give to help educate?
When you say OEM, do you mean a lighting manufacturer?
If you're a lighting manufacturer, or controls manufacturer, you need to get out there and you need to educate the contractors or your clients as an OEM. What's an effective way to do that, and how do you partner?
Well, I say that one thing we do and just try to do is really show the fact that we're working with OEM, and then we have subject matter expert. We constantly talk to them, not just about a product, but also in terms of direction, what the industry is moving towards through the standard bodies, right? So Signify have a lot of people working with the standards group. So we use that information to educate, because I think that education, I hear that being mentioned before. At this stage, there's so many new things coming in. If you're a lighting designer, you probably feel overwhelmed. Oh, here's another Bluetooth, and Zigbee, alphabet soup, right? Even D4I, I heard that first time, so oh please, it's another acronym. So it's education. So we have people who are very well trained. Some of those are sitting in this room to tell them, hey, this is what we have offered, because technology continues to evolve. And I think the lighting industry really started to step up the pace, because you say advanced control, LED, digitization, really bringing a lot of new ideas, new players as well, right? So with Signify, we're working with different partners, so we get that information up front, and we become the focal point of making that information spread through our partners or OEM, who then bring it to their end customers. So it's part of the education process to build awareness, but also build trust, so they can trust us in return, knowing that we are steering them in the right direction, because we're taking that open approach. We're not trying to proprietize it, but rather want to make sure it's an open system.
So I've definitely done a fair amount of work with OEM fixture manufacturers and controls manufacturers. The fixture manufacturer most of them, other than a few of the top ones, but most of them will tell you the same thing. My customer is the specifier or the agent, and until they tell me I need something with Enlighted or Daintree or whatever, that's where I end, right? So as long as I have it on my catalog that I can put these different controls in, they're the ones who are going to tell me. So the OEM, the fixture manufacturer, isn't going to go out and preach IoT. It's not, even if they want to. I think some have tried. At the end of the day, that's not their target customer. What I would like to see happen is, so you go up chain and you have that specifier up there. I would like the specifier to start thinking more IoT. I would like the specifier to begin looking beyond the lighting system and the end result of the light out of the fixture, and more around what's available. The alphabet soup is challenging, right? I mean, if I didn't know what I know and I walked through the controls area of Lightfair, it would have just become a blur. One guy's Bluetooth low energy, another one's Bluetooth mesh, and one's proprietary, one's to the standard. What in the heck is going on? I mean, what do these even do? And everybody seems like they do the same thing, but they don't. And you'd have to really know the system to understand that. So for a lighting specifier to walk in who's been trained in lighting, knows more about lighting than I'll ever know about lighting, and to expect them just to say, now you need to understand everything about what IoT can bring to a space, I don't know that that's the solution. So that's kind of what SBT is trying to do, is let's come alongside the specifier and say, well, when you're specifying that, let me help you make sure that you're not just putting in another LED system with dumb controls, right? I don't like to use dumb, isolated, whatever you want to call it, but let's put in a local, let's put in a network solution, and let me help you build some value. I actually know that customer, and maybe I can even talk to them, before to get them to leverage this network. So it needs folks in the industry to start engaging people that up to today have had no interest in talking about IoT. They'll come to the show and they'll take home pamphlets, but when it comes to designing a system, it's not going to happen, right?
Okay, any other questions from the audience? Great. So I think thank you very much. I really appreciate it again. I'm sure that we'll be doing more, maybe another follow-up session and pick your brain as you kind of gain more insight and experience working with the customers. So thank